the stone.
These were the ancient workers of Egypt, men who lived in the harsh, burning desert of Giza. No machines, no steel, no modern technology. Only limestone, copper hammers, and calloused hands. Day after day, they carved, polished, and lifted stone blocks weighing tens of tons. The sound of hammers striking rock echoed through the desert, blending with the hot wind and the old songs of labor. They didn't know that the monument they were building would one day become an immortal symbol of humanity. A giant statue with a human face and a lion's body, silently watching the sunrise for more than 4,000 years. None of them knew that thousands of years later, the world would still bow before this wonder, asking the same questions. Who built it? When? And how could human hands create something so miraculous? In the 26th century BC, when Egypt stood at the height of its power, Pharaoh Khafre, the son of the great king Khufu, builder of the Great Pyramid, dreamed of a monument that would forever preserve the image of divinity and royal authority. On the Giza Plateau, where golden sands stretched to the horizon, the king gave an order.
Create a being in the form of the sun god, with the strength of a lion and the wisdom of a man.
That command began one of the greatest engineering projects in human history. Under the royal court, master architects were assigned to plan the project. The construction site was divided into 5 main zones: survey and alignment area. The sun engineers used linen ropes, measuring rods, and the shadow of the sun to align the statue precisely on the east-west axis so that its face would greet the sunrise every day. Quarry area, located just south of the Giza Plateau, where the natural limestone was strong but easy to carve, the main material of the monument. Carving zone, the central area, where the single block of limestone remained in place as workers began sculpting it directly from the bedrock. Polishing and painting zone. Craftsmen mixed natural minerals to polish and color the surface. Living area. Camps, food storages, and temporary wells surrounded the desert site to sustain thousands of workers for many years. Without hard metals like iron or steel, they relied only on copper, dolerite stones, and sheer determination. Each tool was forged in fire and dedicated to Ptah, the god of craftsmen, before use. The main material was light yellow limestone, hard enough to endure thousands of years of sun and wind, yet soft enough to carve. Most of the stone came from the Giza Plateau itself, but it wasn't enough. So work crews were sent to Tura, a famous limestone quarry about 13 kilometers east of Giza across the Nile. The stone there was whiter and finer, used for the outer casing and the most detailed parts. Huge blocks weighing several tons were cut using copper hammers and dolerite chisels. Wooden wedges were inserted into the cracks, then soaked with water. As the wood swelled, it split the rock from the cliff. Once freed, slaves and laborers began the grueling task of transport. They dragged the stones using wooden sledges, hemp ropes, and wet Nile mud to reduce friction. On the river, flat-bottomed boats carried the stones westward during the Nile's flood season. Then they were hauled across the desert to the foot of the Giza Plateau. It was a logistical miracle, where human strength replaced wheels and faith replaced machines. After careful measurement, the first outlines of the statue were drawn on the rock with black charcoal and red pigment. Those simple lines carried the weight of eternity. From them, each hammer strike would follow the path that transformed rough stone into a sacred being. Hundreds of workers joined the effort, armed with dolerite hammers, copper chisels, and wooden levers. No cutting tools, no wheels, only human will, patience, and knowledge passed down through generations. The first task was to remove the excess rock, shaping the main mass for carving. They dug deep trenches around the body, each several feet wide and dozens of feet long. When the outline was clear, others used levers and hammers to break off large chunks of stone. The debris was rolled downhill and cleared by slaves to keep the surface even. The sound of hammering echoed across the desert. White limestone dust filled the air, clinging to their hair, skin, and clothes. The wind carried the scent of stone and sweat, the smell of labor and faith. After months of rough carving, the massive stone took form. Then came the master artisans, members of the Pharaoh Sculptors Guild, who began the fine work. Standing on wooden scaffolds around the monument, they measured, carved, and polished with precision. Every detail had to be perfect. Even a few centimeters off could ruin the harmony of the face forever. Ancient architects calculated the ratio between the Sphinx's height, 20.22 meters, and its length, 73.5 meters, to be about 1 to 3.63, close to the golden ratio, phi equals 1.618, later used in Greek art. The proportion between the width of the face and the height of the head also fits within a golden triangle, reflecting the same geometric principles used in the pyramids. The head was made first. It was the soul of the entire monument. They carved every feature of Pharaoh Khafre's face. The narrow, elongated eyes slightly lifted upward to show divine awareness. The straight, high-bridged nose symbolizing authority, and the tightly closed lips curved just enough to form an eternal, calm smile, the expression of one who holds both life and death. The craftsmen used small copper chisels, tapping rhythmically, one strike at a time. Then they polished each finished part with fine sand mixed with Nile water to keep every proportion precise. Below, hundreds of other workers shaped the lion's body. Strong legs, broad chest, and a long torso stretching 73 meters. Each team was responsible for a section, working in perfect coordination under the supervisor's direction. The lower areas were dug deep into the rock to separate the statue's body from the base. Through careful calculation, they made the lion appear to be resting on the ground, powerful yet graceful. Under the blazing 40-degree sun, Egyptian workers bent over, swinging heavy dolerite hammers, chipping small marks into limestone. White dust covered their hair, skin, and lungs. Sweat mixed with blood from cracked hands, dripping onto the rock, blending with the hot desert sand. The labor was brutal. According to inscriptions found on ancient stone fragments near Giza, at least 120 workers died during the 14 years it took to complete the statue. Some fell from scaffolds, others were crushed by falling stones, and many collapsed from exhaustion or heat stroke.
Clear the stone away!
Yet ancient Egypt did not abandon them. Right outside the construction site, a small medical camp was set up, run by the Healers of Ptah. They used honey, resin, and olive oil to clean wounds, acacia bark to stop bleeding, and Nile water mixed with salt to reduce fever.
Drink this, son of Egypt. Ptah's wisdom is in this cup. It will fight the heat within you.
Those with minor injuries returned to work after a few days, while the dead were buried in small tombs at the desert's edge, facing the Sphinx as if still guarding the monument they helped create. To carve the higher details, acacia wood scaffolding was built around the statue. Large planks were tied with hemp ropes and reinforced with resin-soaked flax cords to prevent rot. Artisans worked high above the ground, hanging by ropes in heat over 40 degrees Celsius. The dolerite hammers weighed 3 to 5 kilograms, and the copper chisels, about 40 centimeters long, had to be resharpened every few days. Since dolerite was harder than limestone, each hammer strike created only a small chip. To form a single curve, they needed to strike thousands of times. In one day, a craftsman could carve only 2-3 centimeters deep over an area the size of a hand. The process took years. Sometimes, to soften the rock, they lit charcoal fires on the surface, then poured cold water over it. The sudden temperature change cracked the stone, making it easier to carve. It was a sophisticated technique, one that still amazes archaeologists today. When the form was complete, the polishers began their work. They used fine sandstone, Nile sand, and water to smooth every inch of the statue. With each stage, the Sphinx began to shine, from dull gray limestone to pale gold, then to bright white. The Sphinx's eyes were not placed randomly. They were aligned precisely toward the east, where the sun rises on the spring and autumn equinox, the days when light and darkness are perfectly balanced. On those 2 days, the first sunlight struck directly on the statue's forehead, a phenomenon that could not be accidental. Egyptian priests believed it was the first solar observatory in human history, built to track the sun's cycle and mark time throughout the year. The Sphinx became the guardian of the dawn, where the first rays of sunlight signaled the start of the planting season along the Nile. Decorative artists then painted the monument using natural minerals, red hematite, yellow ochre, and black charcoal. The head was covered in copper red, the color of power and the sun. The body was painted pale gold, the color of sand and eternal light. The eyes were black with blue coal outlines, so when sunlight hit them, they seemed to gaze directly into the sunrise. After thousands of days of labor, the face of the Sphinx was complete. Polishers used Nile sand and granite stones to shine every contour aż ilf reflectized the light brilliantly. They coated the statue in red, gold and black, symbolizując blood, the sun and rebirth. On the day of inauguration, the entire site fell silent. Pharaoh Khafre himself stepped forward, placed his hand upon the statue's cheek, and declared, From this day you will bear my image and the soul of the god Ra. Guard Egypt from all darkness. The ancient Egyptians called the statue Shesep-Ankh, the living image of the god.
Live the king!
And from that day on, every sunrise, the first light of the morning shone directly into the statue's eyes, as if the god Ra himself were gazing through the eyes of the Sphinx to illuminate his kingdom.
Life, prosperity, and health. We celebrate the living God.
More than 4,500 years later, the marks left by those ancient workers' tools are still visible on its body. They did not die in vain. They became part of an eternal wonder. The Sphinx is not just a statue. It is the soul of Egypt, a symbol of the union between man and God, between sacrifice and eternity.
And health. We celebrate the living God.
When the desert wind sweeps across Giza today, some say you can still hear distant echoes, the faint rhythm of hammers, the chants of ancient laborers, as if the voices of those who fell still whisper through the sand. They carved not only stone, but also their own lives into the history of humankind. According to ancient Egyptian belief, the Great Sphinx was not merely a form of stone, but a living being, one that held the soul of both the king and the gods. It was said that Pharaoh Khafre's spirit entered the statue each sunrise to commune with the god Ra. For that reason, no inner chamber was needed. The king's own soul was what truly resided within. The Sphinx served both as the guardian of the tombs and as a bridge between the world of men and the realm of the gods. When Egyptians looked into its eyes facing the east, they believed they were seeing the gaze of Ra himself, the divine light watching over the world.